Welcome back to Voices of Influence, the podcast with Chris Madrigal. Today, I'm sharing a powerful talk with Jaclyn Shaw. Jaclyn has been a mentor of mine for several months now, and she was also the opening keynote speaker for the Top 50 Voices of Influence Women in Alignment virtual event. Now, this talk will soon be available across Roku TV, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV, but honestly, it is too good not to share with the world right now. Now, part of my mission is to impact the lives of 1 million women across the globe by 2029. And a mission this big cannot be done alone. That is why sharing the voices and messages of women like Jaclyn matters so deeply to me. Her wisdom, her faith, her relationship with God, and the way she speaks about money and purpose is already impacting so many women. So, without delaying this further, tune into the opening keynote of Jaclyn Shaw. Welcome to Top 50 Voices of Influence Women in Alignment. I am Chris Madrigal, your host and creator of this experience, and I'm so grateful for you to be here. This week is designed to support you in reconnecting with yourself through 4 pillars of health, wealth, love, and personal power. And today we open up with incredible keynote speakers. And it's my honor to introduce you our opening keynote speaker, Jaclyn Shaw. Jaclyn is a spiritual mentor, best-selling author, and speaker. And today she's joining us to share a powerful conversation around trailblazing with truth. This is God times money like you've never heard before. And as you listen, I invite you to be fully present and remain open to the message that is meant specifically for you. There might be one insight, one shift, or one invitation that supports your next chapter of alignment. So please help me welcome Jaclyn Shaw to Top 50 Voices of Influence, Women in Alignment. Jaclyn, the space is yours.
Hello, hello. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Chris. I am so honored to be here to be kicking off the top 50 voices of influence. I know we're in for such a powerful week and experience here. And when I was invited to open this space, that's really what it feels like, opening the space, opening this room, opening this conversation, and trailblazing with the power of truth. For me, everything in my world, in my teachings, in my leading, in my mentorship comes back to a conversation around God and money. This is my voice of truth. This is me being willing to stand in power and truth and conviction of what I'm here to bring forward, the voice of truth that runs through me. And within today, I want you to really anchor into this for yourself. What does truth represent to you? Oftentimes, when I talk about truth and it's really trailblazing with truth, what does that mean? What's that energy? Trailblazing. We're creating new pathways. We're creating new experiences with wealth, with money, with truth, with what we get to do, with our medicine, with our stories, bringing our wisdom forward to influence others, to impact others. And it begins here first. Am I willing to be the voice of truth that runs through me? Am I willing to say it, be it, live it? Am I willing to not dilute myself? Am I willing to take a stand for what I know because I know and through my lived experiences and decide that that's what creates power? That's what creates authority. That's what creates money. What does truth represent for you? I think it sounds simple, right? Speak your truth. Speak your truth. And for me, it's speak your truth, live your truth, be your truth. Truth creates conviction. Being willing to stand in unapologetic truth of who you are. This is what gets you paid. This is why truth equals power and truth equals money. because this is where God meets you and this is where God signs the paychecks. It's a frequency movement. You stand unwavering in your truth, you build conviction that creates visibility, and visibility creates money. You create absolute freedom through truth and through trust, truth and faith, committing to your walk with God, committing to being the truth of who you are, committing to, again, not just speaking truth, because oftentimes we think, okay, I can speak the truth. I can speak the truth. And then what? You've got to be the walking embodiment of that truth. You've got to be that truth. You've got to live that truth. That means you have to stop betraying yourself. You have to stop feeling like this is a yes, but then all of a sudden fear comes in, or judgment comes in, or that feeling, am I enough? Am I worthy? What will other people think? Can I be the truth of who I am, no matter what, no matter who stands in front of me? Am I willing to be misunderstood? Can I be the truth of who I am when fear kicks in? Can I stop holding on to the lies that I tell myself? And so sometimes we get influenced to betray ourselves, to disrupt our truth when outside energies create interference. And oftentimes, that voice that creates the disruption for you is a voice that comes from up here, from your own mind. And we create limitation in our field. And then we step in with the human elements of us and we try to control things and we try to figure things out and we try to force things and we try to fix things. And the invitation is always come back here. Come back to the depth of your knowing. Come back to the truth of who you are. Come back to wisdom that already exists and already exists within you. This means to be the truth and to live the truth. You've got to stop diluting your words. You've got to stop trying to fit in. You've got to stop trying to say things and do things in a way that makes other people comfortable. Because here's one of the biggest fears. We're here and we're here doing good in this world and leading movements. And right now, what a wild time to be alive when you can literally lead a movement with your voice, where your voice creates so much impact, where your voice creates so much influence. And oftentimes there comes a time where you have to understand that there is a cost associated with this. You want what you want, but you don't want there to be a cost. But that's not how it works. Because the cost is parts of you, the people-pleasing parts, the part that follows the shoulds, the part that makes sure everyone else is good and safe and comfortable. That part of you has to die. That part of you has to take a back seat because truth, by its very nature, disrupts. Truth is oftentimes very much inconvenient. It's inconvenient to speak it. It's inconvenient to live it. It's inconvenient to be the walking embodiment of who you actually are and who you know yourself to be at the core of your being. Truth, by its nature, is uncomfortable because truth grows and evolves, and we're growing and evolving. And as your truth grows and evolves, that means that something you said 5 months ago is no longer going to be true. You're going to contradict yourself. You're going to have beliefs, and then those beliefs are going to shift and change. You're going to speak things that people say, show me the facts, show me the proof, show me the evidence. You get to say, I am the evidence. I know because I know. That's what moves people. You in your power, you with authority, you standing in that conviction. And there's been a conversation for a few years. There was this conversation around the internet. I lead as a spiritual mentor. I lead in the business coaching realm online. And there was this conversation that I felt I heard a lot for a few years, that this idea and a lot of content creators saying you need to be more polarizing in your content. You need to be more disruptive. And I'll say I actually found this conversation really fascinating because for me, truth naturally is. So I'm like, we don't need to try. We don't need to try to polarize. We don't need to try to be disruptive. We don't need to try to get in this energy. We don't need to try to create a hook to get people. You being unapologetically who you are is going to be disruptive. You being unapologetically who you are, standing in it, speaking it, That's what attracts. That's what attracts your ideal people. That's what attracts that next level of influence. That's what attracts that next level of wealth because you're not willing to compromise in who you are. You're not willing to compromise your energy field. You're not willing to compromise your voice. You're not willing to soften it. You're not willing to say it a little bit differently so that other people get it. You no longer operate from your mind and think, let me write this in a way that moves people. Things stop being transactional and it starts being about, I am willing. I am willing to be who I am no matter what, no matter who stands in front of me. And trust that there's people there that will get it. There's people there that will slip right in and be magnetized by your truth and your power and your voice. And there's other people that won't. And that's perfect because you're not actually here to be here for everyone. And when you are trying to be for everyone, you're not here for the people that you really are here for. You, right now, in this very moment, your voice, your wisdom, your life experiences are the answer to someone else's prayer. Now, they don't get to be the answer to that person's prayer if they're tucked away in a journal under your bed. You don't get to be the answer to someone else's prayer if you go to say the thing online and then you backtrack and then you think, that's a little too confronting. That's a little too bold. That's a little bit too, oh my gosh, I mean this, but they might take it to mean that. And so let me pick a different word. Let me choose a different way. Let me try to make sure that they get it. One of the biggest ways that we disrupt our truth and our voice, like we are here, you are here to be a conduit of God. This is where God signs your paychecks. When you're willing to be a conduit of God, when you're willing to speak the truth that runs through you, God's got the rest figured out. God is in deliverance here. God has the soul clients that are aligned for you. God has the ideas that He wants to pour through you, that move through you. And it's like boom, 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 boom. But you have to be willing to be that conduit first. You're not a conduit when you decide that what's given to you is not enough. So, what does this look like? You are sitting there and you have this incredible idea and you want to speak about something and you want to lead in something, but then you say, the way that I received it, the way that thought downloaded, uploaded for me, that's not enough. Let me make it more. Let me add to this. Oh, that might actually piss people off. So let me take this part away. And so God gives you something so powerful, so potent, and then you touch it all with your human fingertips. You don't actually allow yourself to be the voice of the truth that runs through you. You take the truth and then you shift it. You take the truth and then you add and then you take away. And God's like, that's not how it was given. That's not actually the message for the world. The message for the world is you, your way, not by adding somebody else's framework, not by trying to be more like her or more like him or more like the person that you see doing the thing that you want to be doing. You have to bring in your natural flavor. You have to bring in your energy, your essence. This is when you become a trailblazer with your truth. Not because you're figuring out a truth, not because you're finding the right way or the right strategy. You're willing. You're willing to be the truth that already runs through you. You're willing to be misunderstood. You're willing for it not to make sense. I have created multiple seven-figure businesses in ways that don't make sense to anyone. If you wrote it out on paper, it doesn't make sense out there. The impact I've created, the wealth I've created, at times I will actually tell you the next move, the next step didn't even make sense to me. But I make the moves and I follow because I'm willing for it to not make sense. I don't want it to make sense. I don't want to follow a pathway of logic and predictability. And so I've got to take myself off that pathway. I've got to be willing to enter into the field of the unknown and to trust that God's hands in all of it, to trust that when I leap, God's going to catch me. This is literally the way that I made millions in my business. And I've made over $8 million in business the last 8 years operating in this way. First, there was a business partnership where there was a $4 million business. Now, within my personal brand, a $4 million business from being the truth of who I am, from being willing to speak it, to live it and be it. And now these pieces, live it and be it. What does that mean? It's one thing to speak truth and speak wisdom into the world. Are you the embodiment of that truth? One thing I will absolutely guarantee you is if you hear me preaching it, I'm living it. This is why people can find me online and drop in a heartbeat. They can find me online and come in to a year's mentorship with me. They can come in and ask me to speak on their stage, and they can come in and listen to my podcast and binge the whole season because what's felt behind the words. Frequency is always felt behind the words. And so every time you try to search for words, search for a method, search for a pathway outside of you, you start disconnecting from yourself. There's no becoming here. You're not being called to become someone else. You're being called to go deeper in who you already are. There's truth right now that you're not speaking. There are words God's placed within your soul that are ready to come forward. When you leave this space today, that's what I want you to own. Own the fact that who you are right now is enough. This is why it's not about your becoming. There's nowhere you have to get to. There's nothing you need to fix. There's nothing you need to heal. Can I own who I am right now in this very moment? And then let God do the rest. Let God do the rearranging. Let God conspire in your favor because you're conspiring in your favor. What does it mean to conspire in your favor? Be the truth, live the truth, speak the truth. What does it mean to conspire in your favor? Can I listen to the voice inside me versus the noise outside? Can I listen to the soul-led voice versus that voice in my mind? The voice in my mind that is limited based off my human perception, human conditioning, what I've been taught, what I've been told, what I have proof of, what I have past evidence of. Yes, you have the past evidence. Yes, you have the proof up until today. But today, going forward, you create from a different frequency, a different level of knowing, a different space, because right now, where you are in this moment is the moment that exists. Who do I decide to be with in this moment? Is this the moment where I'm going to betray myself? Is this the moment where I'm going to continue to believe the lies I've told myself? Or is this the moment I choose my rising? Is this the moment I choose my truth? Is this the moment I follow that intuition, that nudge, that soul whisper, that scream from inside that makes no sense? Can I be more of who I actually am in this moment? And can I be it, live it, speak it unapologetically? I will tell you, I have lots of practice with this. Being someone who shows up in conversations like this and preaches, do not betray yourself. I have had, this has been the theme of my life the past 18 months or so. Okay, she's talking about being bold in her truth and being unapologetic and being willing to be misunderstood. What does this look like as she lives it? What does it look like as people are judging her? What does it look like as people invite her to betray herself and dangle this, these carrots in front of her? And like, if you just do this, if you're willing to edit that part out, if you're willing to cut the story, if you're willing to adjust the truth a little bit, there's all these promises. And then I come back to self and say, absolutely no way. Me being the truth of who I am is the only thing that I am here for. That's what we came here for. When I say here, here on earth, you came here to be the truth of who you are, to be the fullness of who you are, to not hide parts of yourself, to not water it down, to not dilute it, to not only show, this side and not this side. You're here for the full human experience and the full soul journey, the beauty of it and the mess of it. Can you be all of who you are? Know that there's not certain parts of you that are meant to be hidden. There's not certain parts of you that are too shameful. There's not certain parts of you that if they knew, fill in the blank. We hold ourselves back here. We try to just show parts of who we are, the pretty parts, the polished parts. We show up in a performance frequency. And God says that was not the assignment. The assignment is for you to be unapologetically who you are. Unapologetic. Not just as a trendy buzzword, but truly unapologetic. Who am I choosing to be in this moment? Who am I choosing to be in the next moment? Who am I choosing to be when it looks like my world is crumbling? Who am I choosing to be when the thing I want was right there within reach and then now feels so far away? Who am I choosing to be when I'm in the world of manifestation and it looks like I'm manifesting the opposite? Am I going to be more of who I am? Am I going to double down on my voice? Am I going to double down on my mission? Or is that when I throw in the towel? Is that when I let their voice be louder than my voice? Is that where I lose faith with God? Is that where I want to tell God to go F himself? Is that where I'm like, why? And I sit in the seat of victimhood. Is that where I rise in my power? Is that where you rise in your power? Is that where you double down on who you are? Double down on your truth. I said the last 18 months has been a real experience for me within this. And it first started off, I wrote my first book, spiritual memoir, and it's titled Spiritual Smackdown. And it took me a long time to own my voice within this. It took me a long time to own my truth. People often, when they come in and they work with me and they see me online and they see me unapologetic in my truth, they say, were you always that way? I'm going to say yes and no. Yes and no, in the sense that I believe that we all are born with this, the knowing of who we are, the willingness to be unapologetic, and it gets lost. For me, my voice really got lost as I entered the online coaching space after I had actually already found success in the industry. Then, when I was looking at scaling, I went outside myself and I was like, and they have the pathway, and they have the pathway, and they have the answer. And oh, wait, the way that I speak is incorrect. The way that I write is incorrect. The way that I do this, even though it was working, I had this belief system that started to be coded that it's not the way, that it's not correct, that I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I left myself, I abandoned myself for somebody else's pathway. So back to this book, it was within that realm, it was in that time frame. It took me 8 years and 3 weeks to write this book. 8 years and 3 weeks because it took me 8 years to own that my words were worthy of being heard in the world, to own that my words were meant to be written and meant to be written through my narrative, through my story, through my experience, through my lived wisdom. And once I owned that, the book started to write itself. Once I owned that, it really took about 3 weeks to write the book from start to finish. And at the end, I was so proud of this book. At the end, I felt like, wow, you did it. And it's a masterpiece. And I loved the way that I had written it. I had written basically not writing a book. I just had written and I would sit with myself and I lived in the jungle in Costa Rica and I would be out there and I'd be writing and I wasn't trying to make it make sense. I wasn't writing chapter 1 through chapter 20. I was like, let me just write. Let me write the wisdom that pours through me. Let me connect it to my story, to my experience of my spiritual smackdown. And at the end of writing, I treated it like an arts and crafts project. I literally printed it all out on pieces of paper and just cut and pasted and decided I want this section here and this section here, feeling like I was masterfully weaving this story of an experience that had happened when I was writing it 8 years before, when I was pregnant with my daughter, and the wisdom that I carry with it today. And I know without that experience, it's called a spiritual smackdown. So I'll let you go where your mind goes, but it's like one of those dark night of the soul moments, a spiritual smackdown, like rock bottom moment in the choosing of your rise and choosing of your power. At that point in my life, I wasn't the woman that I am today. I wasn't connected spiritually in the way I am. I mean, we're never not connected. I wasn't aware how connected we are. I had forgotten who I was. That experience was transformational in my life, in my journey. It's made me the woman that I am today because of what I've chosen on the other side. So I wrote this book. And again, masterpiece is what I felt. I'd never written a book before. I had the story before that. I don't know how to write a book. Can I speak this level of truth? Like there's a lot of truth in that book that's uncomfortable for people to read. That will be one day, I'm sure, uncomfortable for my children, that there was moments it was uncomfortable for my husband, for our family, for other people in my life. Can I allow my voice, my truth, my experience that I know is here to help heal the world? That I know people will read this book and have their own experience with, can I let that truth be louder than the noise that says, you don't know how to write? This isn't the right way to write a book. this is too vulnerable. This is too much. This is too shameful. And the first thing I was met with when I sent this book to a spiritual mentor of mine, who's not only a spiritual mentor, but a best-selling author, and I sent it to him, and his first response was, "This book is filled with so much wisdom. I'd be so happy to write the foreword for it and to give it to my publisher. And, you're going to heal a lot of people with these words and with this book." And then a few months later, 6 weeks later, before he had written the foreword, says, "Can I have a conversation with you about your incredible book?" And I got on the call expecting a conversation about, and I wrote the foreword and I sent it to my publisher, and it's going to be epic and great and a bestseller and all these things. And his response was, "The story is too shameful to be printed for the world to read. I think you need to rip out your story, rip out what that represented to me, rip out my truth, rip out this. It's not a story. This is an experience that I lived. This is where I collected the wisdom from." And he said, "Yeah, but it's not needed. Just let the wisdom stand on its own. Why do people need to know this story that's going to bring so much shame for your family, for you?" And I sat there with tears streaming down my face because I knew the thing that thought I wanted, the thing that made sense for me, the pathway that I saw was being removed. And I poured tears out of my eyes because I knew in that moment I was being called to not betray myself. Can I trust God's hands in this? If I'm willing to be the truth of who I am, God's hand is in this. Can I stand in my power? Can I stand in my truth? Can I stand in conviction? Or am I going to let this expert, this guru, this mentor, am I going to let his voice be louder than my voice? His truth louder than my truth? See how easy it is to get influenced outside? See how easy it is to betray ourselves? And what happens when we don't? What happens when we go deeper and deeper and deeper in our truth, in our power, our willingness to say, "No, I absolutely 100,000,000,000% believe that speaking the truth about our lives is our holy work, is our holy work here as leaders, as human beings walking this planet right now. Can I be the truth of who I am? Can I speak the truth, live the truth, be the truth in all the ways? In the conversations I have with my family, with my leadership, with the words I put out in the world, with my social media, with the books that I write." And so I stood in my power on this with this first book. And then I got invited to write a second book. And part of the publishing deal with my second book, when it came with a new editor. And this book was quite different. The first one was a spiritual memoir, so a lot of my story infused with wisdom. The second book, Whispers of the Divine, is a lot of spiritual wisdom and channeling and my truth that feels so deep and so true and so connected to me. That's what this book is. And there's elements of my story, but it really is leading with the wisdom, leading with my beliefs about God, my beliefs about how God shows up in deliverance in our life, my beliefs about God and money, my beliefs about what we're being called here to do, stepping into our divine identity with sacred allowance and operating from a place of embodied devotion. And within writing that second book, I got met with resistance again, met with an editor that said, "These words, you can't talk about God like that. This is dangerous. This is harmful. Change these words now." And again, I had to sit with myself. Am I willing to dilute my voice? Am I willing to, I call this, she wanted me to make it more vanilla, make it more acceptable. She's like, connect the dots for people. Explain yourself here so that they don't misunderstand. And I had to sit and say, I'm not willing. I'm not willing to change these words. I don't want to write a book that people have read before. She's like, if you change this, if you do this, it's going to be a bestseller. I don't want to bring my voice forward in a way that people have heard a million times. So I've got to stand in the truth of who I am, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's too uncomfortable for some people, even when my editor said so. And so bringing forward my truth in a different way, a conversation with the publisher and finding a new editor. This is how committed you've got to be to speaking your truth and being the truth, meaning that each time somebody says they don't like it or they're uncomfortable, that you're not willing to betray yourself, that you're not willing to stay small, that you're not willing to stay hidden, that you're not willing to stay quiet. Can I be the truth of who I am no matter what, no matter who stands in front of me? Because I'm not willing to betray myself. I'm not willing to deny my soul. And this is where, this piece and this work becomes really interesting for me. It's like if I'm willing to deny my soul, if I'm willing to betray myself, guess what happens? We start to get these self-inflicted wounds where it's like I was going to, but my intuition called, but God instructed, but. And then we sit there in why is it not working and why is it not happening for me and why is God not conspiring in my favor when it looks like he's conspiring in his favor and her favor and it's working for them. And God's like, I've given you the words, I've given you the ideas, I gave you the book to write, I gave you the podcast, I gave you the all the things, and you changed it. You did not show up and act in accordance. You were not willing to be the voice of truth that runs through you. And so, of course, that's where you're being met. When you wait, God meets you there. When you hold back, God meets you there. When you're willing to be the fullness of who you are, God meets you there. And he meets you in the frequency of the unknown. The unknown is God's favorite playground. When you're willing to not know, when you're willing to not control what comes next, you're willing to be the truth of who you are in that field of not knowing. You're willing to be misunderstood. You're willing to be truth, speak truth, lead with truth, live truth. Now, here's the interesting thing about truth. I mentioned this before. Truth grows and evolves. So we often hold back in fear of that. Well, what if my truth changes? It's going to. It's meant to. Can you own your truth at each step of the journey? And can you also allow multiple truths to coexist? This is why it's easy for me to be misunderstood and where I'm willing to be misunderstood because I don't expect my truth and your truth to be the exact same. I expect that when I show up in my truth frequency, that people are going to get to receive. People are going to get to take what resonates with them and leave behind what doesn't. I expect that my truth is going to lead people to their truth, but not because my truth is the only truth, but because I'm willing to speak it, you're going to hear the resonance within yourself. And it's either going to be in agreement or disagreement. And it doesn't matter if it's in agreement or disagreement because even within the disagreements, you're going to find your own truth. Which means I can come in here and I can have a whole conversation. We're going to talk more about God and money right now. And you might be like, yes, 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 that's what I've always known about God and felt about God. And this feels so true and this feels in alignment. And we're going to connect through me speaking my truth. And some of you here might have the experience of that actually doesn't feel true to me. And then you get to go deeper within yourself. You don't just blindly follow me and believe me. What does my truth within this feel like? And then you find your own truth, and there's power in that. And one thing that I often say is, I'm here for the full human experience and the full soul journey. And so I know that about you too. I allow you to have your full human experience and your full soul journey. So I don't need to show up and convince you. I don't need to show up and be right. I don't need to show up and say, and there's these credentials and I have this evidence and I have this proof. I am the proof. My willingness to be who I am and what's created in my life is the proof for me. My I know because I know is enough. When I let that lead, you either find resonance with it or you not. You either like me or you hate me. You either say, let me dive deeper with this woman or you don't. And whatever you choose is correct for you. I don't need you on board here. I just need to show up and be the truth of who I am and let the rest unfold. Let God work his magic. Let God deliver the people that I am the answer to their prayers for, whether it's through writing a book or this conversation we're having here today, or a free course I run, or a 12-month mastermind that I run. It doesn't matter. What matters is I'm willing. I'm willing. And so God's able to deliver. I open the pathways and God's like, okay, yes, we're going to bring this person through here and this person through here and this person through here. And I get to have faith and I get to trust in all of it. I get to not control that. I don't have to create the interference there because my work is the work. My walk with God is the work. My faith, my trust, my being who I am, me expressing my truth is the work. And the work's the same for you. This is this is the pathway to true freedom. This is the pathway to true liberation. When we say, like, I am who I am, and I am who I am because of my life experiences and because of the wisdom that I hold and the wisdom I carry from my life experiences, from my lived wisdom. And I'm not meant to hide any of it. And none of it's too shameful. Not any of it. Your experiences in your life, the ones that who have brought you here to this moment, the ones who have created who you are right now, don't wish them away. They made you who you are in this moment. They brought you to this space. They brought you to where you're at in life right here, right now. What do you choose to do from here? Who do you choose to be? Are you going to shut down parts of yourself? Are you going to shut down parts of your voice? Do you only feel safe with some and not with others? My truth is healing and your truth is healing. So we've got to be willing to be it. This is where this always opens up such an interesting conversation for me. Your truth has the power to transform everything, like everything and anything, in ways seen and unseen. You mean the truth of who you are creates ultimate safety, safety with yourself. We hear a lot of talk around nervous system regulation. The only way that I know how to be feeling like completely safe in who I am is being the fullness of who I am, being the truth of who I am. I don't feel safe with myself if I'm being parts of who I am, if I'm sharing part of my voice, part of my truth, because then it always feels like there's something off, there's something missing, there's something that someone could judge, there's something that can be taken away. When I am who I am, no matter what, I am because I am. I am who I am. Feel the power in that. Feel the authority in that. Feel the faith in that. This is where God responds. When we don't show up trying to perform and trying to impress, but showing up to be the full expression of who we are. Truth comes from within you. It comes from right here. It burns as your eternal flame. The holy work, my holy work to be the truth of who I am, your holy work to be the truth of who you are, to use your God-given voice and given medicine. You have medicine and gifts inside of you right now that heal the world. And I don't say that lightly. Your voice, your truth will heal the world. Every time you open your mouth, every time you're willing to speak it, every time you're willing to be, I am who I am, and who I am is enough. And I'm here to be the full expression of that. That's where you start. And you invite God to co-create with you. You invite God to sign your paychecks. God signs your paychecks because you're willing, because you're not holding back, because you're not diluting your voice, because you're not shifting the language, because you're not trying to make it more comfortable. I'm willing to be who I am, knowing that who I am may only be for 0.00001% of the population. And I'm willing to show up for that person. I'm willing to show up when it's uncomfortable and scary. I'm willing to show up when fear kicks in. I'm willing to show up when I don't know where it leads. I'm willing to use my voice and speak my truth, even when it's confusing, even when I feel misunderstood, even when it appears not to be working yet, meaning the opposite is appearing, the opposite is coming in, even when I'm met with resistance, even when I'm told it's too harmful, it's too shameful, it's too dangerous. In those moments, can I double down? Double down on my truth, double down on my voice, double down on my mission. And God says yes. That's where you say, I'm all in. I'm no longer toe dipping here. I'm no longer willing to be a fraction of who I am. I'm all in. And God says, me too. What does all in mean to you? Can you be all in the darkness, all in when it's messy, all in the moments where you feel like throwing it in the towel, all in because you know you have access to truth within you at all times. You're not separate from truth. Truth comes from right here. Truth is a vibration. It's a vibration that's felt. It's a vibration that it's experienced. It's a vibration that literally vibrates around the world. So when you don't know where to start, come back here again and again and again. Am I willing to be the truth of who I am? Not who I think of myself to be, not who I've been conditioned to be, not what I think is acceptable for other people. Can I be the truth of who I am in each moment? Even when I want to respond, even when I want to react, even when there's moments of feeling like I'm a victim here. Side note, you're not. Within all the moments, can I choose to be the truth of who I am? Can I choose to be love? Can I choose my power? Can I choose my knowing? Can I choose to look through God's lens, God's eyes versus my limited human lens, my limited human eyes? And that's not said as a judgment, that is said as truth. Our human lens is limited because our human lens, our human eyes, sees what it sees right now in the moment, but doesn't see beyond the moment, doesn't see the story that's just about to change. So you do have a lot of evidence. You have a lot of evidence from the past. You have a lot of evidence that you've now turned into fact, where you sit here and say, but this is what tomorrow brings. Says who? You're the creator. You're the one. You get to decide. I've recently had something go a bit viral on Instagram. I'm going to share it here with you because it's in this frequency of truth. Can I just be the truth of who I am and let it vibrate around? It was a video where I was speaking on stage and I shared how when I was $200,000 in debt, that I decided I wasn't going to let that define me anymore. I decided that even though the truth was when I looked at my bank account, I was $200,000 in debt, what would be predictable from there is that I would go into more debt because it was always money in, money out, and just not enough, like just not enough. So more debt and more debt got accumulated. And so from my human mind, my human lens, that looks like, and that story is going to continue. And that story is going to continue, and you're bad with money and all of these things. And I decided I get to write the story right now. Just because that was the truth of yesterday does not mean it's the truth of today and does not mean it's the truth going forward. It's like if I'm making this up, if I'm making it up that I'm bad with money, even though I have evidence from the past that I have been, if I'm making up that tomorrow's going to be the same, why don't I make up a story that serves me? And so I sat with this and I really sat with this and I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean about me that I'm $200,000 in debt? What if it means nothing? What if it actually means that God, the banks, trust me with $200,000? Why don't I trust myself? And then I started to have this feeling and this thought and this belief. God and the banks trust me with $200,000 of debt. They also know that there's a pathway for me to make $200,000. And so if there's a pathway, God knows the pathway for me to make $200,000. And I was like, it doesn't even feel true that God would just bring me back to zero. So I must also be a match for $200,000. And then all of a sudden, I did the math there. And this is God's math. So if I'm a match for $200,000 of debt and I'm a match for $200,000 of cash, I'm actually a match for $400,000. This is how I started to create my wealth. This is how the God X money conversation comes in. I started to create wealth by having the belief and having the knowing before I had the evidence, before I had the experience. And we're not talking belief with like cross the fingers and hope and wish for it. It's like the real belief in the possibility of this, the knowing that this is how God works, the knowing that I'm available for so much more, the knowing that the money in my bank account doesn't need to define me, the knowing that I am here as a conduit of God, a child of God, and I get to own that no matter what the current circumstances are. 8 months later, I had my first six-figure month in my business. Cash. $200,000 of debt, started shifting my beliefs, starting to rewrite the story, a story that I made up. I made up the story and the belief that if God gave me $200,000 of debt, He gave me a pathway for $400,000 so I could be $200,000 plus. I'm going to create stories and beliefs and knowing that serve me. Why would they create from the frequency of not enough? Or this is going to be the story that continues when I don't want that. And from there's another six-figure month and another six-figure month. And then have that year, I call it my $1 million year in my business, $958,000 a year. And from there, it's growing and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And what I've done throughout this journey and throughout this growth is be willing to be who I am, to be the truth, to speak the truth, to live the truth, and to not get lost in the noise and to not let other people's voices be louder than my own. Now, I wish I could tell you, and for 8 years, that's all that it's been. And of course, there's been moments where I got lost. There's moments I've forgotten who I am. There's moments where I diluted my truth and not even really knowing it. And this is also part of the journey. You're going to forget who you are. You're gonna forget that God's from within you, that you and God are one, that God's creation pours through you. And there's gonna be times where you think they know the answer, and you're gonna forget, and you're gonna make choices based off somebody else's knowing over your knowing. What do you do within that moment? Do you choose from the ethers of now? Do you choose again? Do you choose to go back into remembrance of who you are? Or do you shame spiral there? Do you decide you've messed it all up? In each moment, even when I forget, can I find gratitude in the forgetting, knowing that the forgetting has led me to a deeper remembrance? Because I have the power to choose right now. Am I looking through the lens of expansion? Am I looking through the lens of abundance? Am I shrinking? Am I collapsing? Am I looking through a contracted field? Am I looking through a lens filled with distortion? Am I getting distracted by the outside noise? Am I getting distracted by the past evidence? And am I willing to shift that? Am I willing to look from a new lens? Am I willing to see what I haven't yet seen? The prayer for me is simple. God, show me. I'm willing to see what I haven't seen before. God, blow my mind. God, I'm ready. I'm willing. I'm available. I'm willing to be the truth that runs through me. And I'm willing to receive in overflow because I'm willing to act in accordance. And because I conspire in my favor, I expect God to meet me there. I expect God to conspire in my favor. I'm willing to be the voice of truth, a voice of influence, to have the impact that I'm here to have through speaking my truth, being my truth, living my truth. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Jaclyn, for sharing your wisdom, for your experiences shared, and really for just bringing your voice with so much truth today. I know that there are so many powerful takeaways in this conversation. And to everyone watching, take a moment and just sit with the messages that spoke to you the most. And more importantly, consider how you can begin applying this in your own life. Now, go and connect with Jaclyn and let her know what you received from her message today. Thank you so much again, Jack, for being part of Top 50 Voices of Influence, Women in Alignment. We are so grateful to have you here with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me open up this space. And like you said, I love connection. So come connect, come reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, wasn't that powerful? Every time I hear Jack speak, I'm reminded that God, money, purpose, and leadership are not separate conversations. These are all deeply interconnected. Now, Jaclyn is the founder of Employed by God. It is a mastermind experience I have personally been a part of for several months now. And if you're a woman who is ready to experience what it feels like to have God as your co creator and your co pilot in life and business, then this is the room to step into. And I say your co creator and co pilot for life or business because that's how I see it. God is my co pilot, and I do everything with God. Now, inside Employed by God, you will never experience God and money the same way again. That I can promise you. Now, click the link in the show notes to learn more and to join us inside Employed by God. Thank you for listening to Voices of Influence, the podcast with Chris Madrigal. Until next time, I will see you in the next episode.